This is Koba Sensei from ITeens Lab. This is the 12th video in our series explaining how to use Unity. In the last video, we worked on a program where objects disappear when they collide. This time, we'll be talking about prefabs, or in other words, creating clones. I'd like to explain this topic today. A prefab is basically something that lets you create clones. Once you make the original, you can create as many clones as you want. This is useful for things like spotting enemy characters, creating items, or launching projectiles, stuff like that. It's an incredibly useful feature, so make sure to remember it. Alright, let's get started. First, I'm going to talk about what a prefab actually is. For example, let's say you want to make a lot of those obstacles we created last time. You could use Ctrl+D or Command+D, or even right-click and select Duplicate. That way, you can keep making copies like this. You keep creating these obstacles, and when you hit one, it breaks, so it's like, let's destroy these obstacles. That's the kind of game I'm thinking about making here. So, at that time, you'll be making a lot of these obstacles, but for example, if you think, I should have made this obstacle a bit bigger from the start, and you have to adjust each one individually. It's actually pretty tedious to make each one bigger one by one, right? If you do it one at a time like that. So, let's go back a bit. So, when you want to undo something like this, you can use Ctrl+Z or Command+Z to undo your actions. Now we're back to the original state. Like I mentioned earlier, it's actually pretty tough to make changes after you've already copied and created a bunch of them. So, for example, let's just delete all of these and leave only one. Once you've got this obstacle cube set up and you think, alright, it's done. If you drag and drop it over here into the Assets section, you'll see that the cube appears here. This is what we call a prefab. So, what's the difference? Well, when you turn something into a prefab like this, you can keep adding more and more of them just like this. If you drag and drop it out like this, yeah, it basically works like a copy function. But just like before, if you think, oh no, I should have made these bigger, you can go back to the main prefab itself at the root. Right. If you make this one bigger, then all of them will get bigger too. Anything made from the same prefab can be controlled all at once, so you can keep creating more and more obstacles like this. When you want to make clones or copies of the same thing, instead of just simply increasing the number of copies, it's actually easier to manage later on if you turn them into prefabs and keep adding more prefabs like this. That's how it works. In Unity, this prefab feature is used a lot. So, I hope you'll make sure to remember this well. Alright. What I'd like everyone to take a look at is this. Earlier, when we dragged and dropped this cube over here, this cube became a prefab. And once it becomes a prefab, you can see here, this icon turns blue. Do you notice how the color of the icon changes a bit? This is the mark that shows, this is a prefab. So, with this, any copies you make can be managed all at once later on. That's how it works. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, is that really all that useful? And maybe you don't quite get it yet, so let me explain a bit more. For example, let's create another cube, and I'll try changing its name. Red cube. Let's call this one red cube. Now, I'm going to change its color. To change the color, you do a here. From the assets, create a new material. Let's name this material Red 4 now. Now, simply click on this and change it to red. Now that we've made a red material, if you apply it to the red cube, it becomes a red cube. And then, turn this red cube into a prefab. Keep making this red cube. I'll keep adding more. It looks something like this. Now, in this situation, let's take this red cube again. If you want to change the color or the size, this becomes really convenient in situations like that. The cube is overlapping with the sphere right now, so I'll move it out of the way. Okay, so in this state, the red cube doesn't have a script for what happens when it collides with something yet. But even in situations like this, there's no need to worry. Normally, you would have to add the script that makes the red cube disappear when it collides to each individual red cube. But that's a hassle, so instead, we'll add it to the main body of the red cube prefab. So I'm going to attach this cube. Now, take a look outside. This is the inspector for the red cube prefab. The script for the cube has been added. So, by attaching the script to the root of this prefab, we've managed to add the script to all of these at once. Let's take a look. Alright. Now, all these red ones disappear when they collide. Sorry about that. The beach just went off somewhere. It looks something like this. Yes. This kind of feature is what we call a prefab. So, for example, now let's take this prefab. I'm copying this prefab as it is. In my case, I used Command+T to copy it. Now, let's turn this prefab into a blue cube and maybe change its name a bit. I've changed it to a blue cube. Now, we've created a new prefab with the blue cube. It's already blue, but since it doesn't have any color applied yet, let's create a new material, this time, blue. Let's make a blue material for it. Alright. Once it's created, apply this blue material to the blue cube right here. Now, we've got a blue cube prefab. Next, place it on the screen like this. And for this blue cube, let's change its shape a bit to make it taller and more vertical. That's how I want to set it up. Now, we've got a tall, vertical blue cube. With it set up like this, you can keep adding more of these tall blue cubes. But here's a quick tip. If you add a blue cube here, you might notice that even though you made it bigger earlier, the new one isn't actually bigger. So, what's going on? Well, even if you resize it here after placing the prefab, the changes won't be applied later. So, if you want to change the size, you need to modify the prefab itself, the original blue cube, directly. This is a bit of a hassle, so let's take a look at the blue cube whose size we changed earlier. Now, let's check the inspector for the blue cube that we just made bigger. Now, at the top right here, you'll see something that says Override. If you click it and then press Apply All, like this, the prefab also becomes taller. Does it look something like this? So, about that Override Apply All I just mentioned, what it does is, when you make changes like this, it applies those changes to all prefabs. Since you can do things like this, for example, if you want to create obstacles as prefabs or objects that you need to copy multiple times, it's best to use prefabs to make them. You can make as many as you want, so it's really convenient during the game. That's right. So, just like this, we've managed to create a game where you can copy lots of obstacles. Alright, so from here on, I really encourage everyone to go ahead and mass-produce these obstacles and try making a game where you crash into them and break them. I think it would be pretty fun, so if you've made it this far, definitely give it a try. Just a quick tip when you're playing this game. Yes, sometimes the ball can roll off somewhere and disappear from view. So, this is the game screen. There's a camera here. If you click on this camera, like this, you can see from what angle the camera is showing the game. So, the camera. This is the direction from which the camera is showing the screen. Yes. And here, you can see what things look like from the camera's perspective. So, for example, if you move the camera like this, you can also control what the camera shows. So, like this, you can adjust the camera's position a bit, line up a bunch of obstacles, and try making a program where you crash into them and break them. Definitely try it out using Prefab. Alright, that's it for this video. Thank you very much. Alright, great job everyone. So, did you get a good understanding of prefabs? This prefab feature in Unity really useful, so I hope you'll keep practicing and get the hang of it. Next time, we'll use this prefab feature to create a program that shoots balls. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.